If we are to address the elephant in the room, we must get a couple of facts out of the way so that we can see this picture. Number one, there is nothing like an abandoned or orphaned elephant in nature. For an elephant to abandon its calf, it means that the mother is dead. But not only is the mother dead, but the sisters and the aunties and the mothers and everything else is dead. There is no more herd. This is the last remaining elephant in that family. And these are huge herds, up to 15 people, 15 animals, elephants dead. That's what it means when you find an abandoned elephant calf. Number two, humans and other animals, both herbivores, carnivores, and reptiles, do abandon their children. They abandon them in times of distress. But there is even a difference in how those children are abandoned. For example, herbivores abandon them because they are small and weak and they are running from prey and they reproduce like rabbits. Some of them are even rabbits. They abandon them because they will be able to reproduce immediately and cover that. There are many of them, and they are not in strictly patriarchal, matrilineal societies or matriarchal societies. Therefore, the importance of the child is very limited, but also they give birth very fast, and elephants take 24 months. So they understand that it means to bring a child into this world more than most animals in the animal kingdom. Prey, carnivores, on the other hand, work differently. They abandon their children in times of distress because they can't feed themselves. And they abandon them to nature, hoping that they could save themselves, but also they will give birth. That is animal nature. Point number 3. Humans do abandon their children, as you saw in point number 2. However, before the Europeans came, and when they came, they reported there were no orphans in Africa. Orphan is a modern connotation. It's a word that came with the colonizers. And when they came with orphans, then we realized you can have an orphanage. You can exist in a society where children are homeless, fatherless, motherless, sisterless. Nothing is there for them. Nobody is there to take care of them. For an African, this was an abomination. This was not normal. This was foreign. This was Western. This was cruel. This was unnatural. For us, nature made that a child is not alone. And of the way, even in patrilineal societies, I'm talking of the Luo or the Somali, the children were never abandoned. Orphanage is a modern construct brought by the Western society. Children had a home like the elephants. Today, this week, last week, we heard about the elephants in Amboseli dying, suddenly, all of a sudden dying. And the KWS reports that this is from cyanide poisoning. So we go to point number 4, or is it 3? 4. Point number 4, the only natural predator of elephants that can vanquish an entire herd so that you have the creation of an orphan elephant is man. And man must use lethal means that were also not available to the African, because he had been able to live and coexist with the elephants forever. In fact, the trading routes of the Akamba are based off the elephants, because the Kambas realized if you followed the elephants through Chanzavi, you'll avoid the dump. As you know, along Kamulu, the plains in Kapiti, Ukolu, Kenya, the black cotton soil is very dangerous. But also, that is also where most wildlife are. So the elephants created the best tracking routes all the way to appear at Chanzave because they knew how to avoid the swamps. And so the Kambas followed them and met the elephants coming from Mount Kenya towards Kiambu, so to speak, right? Chanzave is now Juja Uko. Kilimambogo. And so moving forward, coming this way, they were then able to use those to join now the other parts of past Mount Kenya, and so on and so forth. And the other thing they used that route is because they realized, and that is even how they learned some of the medicines. In fact, the discovery, or how they understood that small doses of venom can be able to cure or have an aesthetic element, is because The puff adders, especially, or the mambas, when they beat an elephant, the elephant did not die. It simply lied down for a moment and woke up. And with that, they realized that if it is too big, then it can't be killed. So you make the venom smaller quantity and it can have that effect. That is how the relationship of the African and the elephant existed. And when the elephant died, you cut its meat and enjoyed and fed yourselves for 3 weeks. Today, first, it is illegal to eat elephants. But the reason part of that is illegal is because between 1836 and 1936, tens of thousands, up to hundreds of thousands of elephants were wiped out from East Africa by the whites, by the colonialists. They were wiping them out. By wiping them out, you don't mean they were dusting. They were killing them for 2 purposes. The first purpose and the original purpose, the initial purpose, was to get their husks, which were said to be the best ones for the keyboards of the pianos because they absorbed the sweat, because this is a natural material. And so today, as we speak, hundreds of thousands and millions of homes in Europe and across the world are littered with the bones and teeth of African elephants, wiped for that luxury. Because the piano in the parlor, the piano in the bar, that was the ultimate status symbol created off the death of our elephants. The strings, the music created that has moved people has been brought by the death of our animals. After that, when the settlers, the colonialists grabbed our land and settled here, particularly in the Rift Valley, and Mount Kenya, particularly in the Mount Kenya, not so much the Rift Valley. There were elephants there, but in Mount Kenya, they were given the orders to shoot the pests. The pests had to be shot dead because the elephants were like the heralds. They guided the other herbivores, and they realized that when the elephants came, the others followed, including the trade caravans. By the Kamba, we all followed the elephant. We followed the elephant, and so you shot all of them. They shot them. Because when you shoot the elephant, which has that memory to create and plan the route, to know where to go, then the others will never come. The vegetation is too thick. They will never be able to come back there. And that is how the memory of the African animal and the African people was severed for the commercial interest of growing tea and coffee in Kenya. Today, the African lives in orphan. The UNICEF reports that 80% of all the orphan children in orphanages that are supported and donated across the world by NGOs and all these people writing charitable letters for support to support the orphan African have one parent. This is a business. The business of orphanages is a business that keeps people in money, flash money, out of the emotional crisis complex, so that you are able to tell people these children are orphans. In fact, most of the children exported or taken away as orphans from Africa are not orphans. The orphanage tourism that has gone on in Africa has been to carry children and say they are orphans, so you get money and support and finance. You don't have to pay for surrogacy. It is cheaper to do that here in Africa and to take a child to educate them and have that agreement. And because of corruption, we allow our children to go. Now, orphanage has a business. It has a profit. Stop. Stop! It is a thriving business that makes a lot of money. Sure, we have needy cases and families have been broken because also our family structures were forever altered as the colonizer brought their civilized fucking societal models to Africa. And so orphanages are normal. But the most profitable orphanage business in the world is the orphanage of the elephants. Elephants must be killed en masse. The entire clan must be exterminated for you to create orphanages for elephants.